Ladies and gentlemen, the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirement will please come to order. It's Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. It's about 5 p.m. and we're here in room 123 at the State Capitol Building. Welcome, everybody. Tonight's agenda will start by having approval of the March 18th, 2025 meeting minutes. Members, that's in your packet. Any member discussion before we move to approve the minutes? 3, 2, 1. Seeing none, Senator Westland moves adoption of the minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The minutes are adopted. We'll go right to Representative O'Driscoll with House File 2237. Representative.
Mr. Chair, this was a bill that was laid over from last week at the request of some of the members of the committee. And I did receive 3 amendments from Representative Rasmusson. And maybe what would be most appropriate before we do that is to let Representative Rasmusson talk about the amendments in totality, and then we can maybe take them one at a time and maybe have some more robust discussion, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you very much for that flexibility, Representative O'Driscoll. Senator Rasmusson, I think what the representative is saying, talk about the amendments kind of as a group and then individually. Senator Rasmusson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative O'Driscoll. I'm happy to talk through the amendment. And Mr. Chair, I had a question. I know we have some testifiers listed in our agenda. Do we want them to speak before member discussion, or?
Senator, you're allowed to move your amendment at any time you think it's
Yeah.
appropriate. If you'd rather have the testifiers, I don't think there's any problem with that. Representative O'Driscoll, you're probably okay either way?
Certainly. Just to, at this time, I've advised Representative Rasmusson earlier today that I am not supporting any of the amendments, and the reason for that is we had MSRS work with their board on this and have approval. We also had the actuarial review on this, and this is in keeping with the plans that we had back in 2018 and before that to bring things back on track. But as out of respect for the process, which I did ask for, I want to have Representative Rasmusson have the opportunity to explain those amendments, but I'm going to be recommending no votes, and I will get more into the details as to why. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Representative. That helps, actually. All right, let's do this. Let's have our testifiers come up. First, I have Mark Schulte. Mr. Schulte, if you'll come forward. And then we have 2 other testifiers, Dr. Landers and Aaron Leonard. Let's go to Mr. Schulte first. Mr. Schulte, welcome back to LCPR. Please identify yourself and present your testimony.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Friends, Commission members. Mark Schulte from V Actuarial Solutions, retained actuary for the LCPR. Here today just to provide some brief testimony as a follow-up to some of the discussion from last week's commission meeting about benefit improvements and funded status of pension plans. And there was some discussion about at what point is it prudent to have benefit changes. And I don't think there's a clear black and white answer to that, but just want to go over a couple topics that I think might be helpful for the commission to hear. First, a quick word on the House File 2237. As discussed last week, these are very modest improvements with a prospective increase to the multiplier and an incremental increase to the COLA. With that being said, I want to just talk about a couple of background considerations that were in a issue brief that I believe was passed around as part of the submitted information from the Academy of Actuaries on what plans should consider as they approach 100% funded status and are approaching a surplus position. In addition to the standard considerations of benefit improvements and contribution adjustments, often when plans approach 100%, they should be thinking about reassessing their assumptions to make sure that any analysis is done from a position of strength. I think that the statewide plans do a great job of evaluating their assumptions periodically. It would only come into play if there has been changes. So say if there has been a lot of disability experience not reflected in a recent actuarial evaluation, that wouldn't be a good basis for a measurement of a plan change. I don't think that applies in this case, but consideration if there are other benefit changes that come up throughout the session this year. Also evaluating risk reduction strategies as they approach 100% funded status. That would be maybe adding conservatism to assumptions or changes to the investment strategies or other funding policies. I think this was addressed with the amortization work group over the interim period, where they reevaluated the amortization periods used to determine funding sufficiency, which is one of the measurements that was discussed with regards to this bill. The other options for plans that are approaching 100% funded standard are the standard ones that are being addressed here, which are measured benefit improvements. And that deals with having clear long-term objectives with regards to benefit levels, restoring benefits that maybe previously were cut, but just making sure that those are done with modeling under different scenarios so we can attest to the effect or potential effect of any plan changes. And lastly, contribution rate adjustments, which are really in partnership with benefit improvements and how those levels are together as far as what benefits are being paid for at a certain contribution level. And this is particularly important for Minnesota statewide plans because they're fixed rate plans, and it can be challenging if contribution rates are reduced to ever increase them in the future because of the statutory process required. So though not all these considerations directly apply to this proposed bill, I thought it'd be helpful to go over the considerations just so the commission's aware of things to keep in mind as you consider benefit improvements either for this plan or for other plans that come up throughout the session.
Thank you for that, Mr. Schulte. It is helpful. All right, members, any questions for Mr. Schulte, or we'll go to the next testifier? Seeing none, we'll go to Aaron Leonard, and after that, Dr. Landers. Ms. Leonard, welcome back. Please introduce yourself and present your testimony.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Erin Leonard. I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota State Retirement System. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify on House File 2237. As you heard last week, the bill as drafted is supported by the MSRS Board. It increases the formula multiplier prospectively for active general plan members from 1.7 to 1.9, prospective only, and increases the post-retirement increases for current and future retirees from 1.5% fixed compounded to 1.75%, beginning in January. These are modest benefit improvements for all plan members, active, deferred, and retired. Plan members have experienced several benefit reductions and contribution rate increases over the last 15 years. These impacted all plan members, and the MSRS Board position is that all plan members should benefit when we are able to increase benefits. Currently, the MSRS General Plan is 99.82% funded. Increasing these benefits will decrease the funded ratio to approximately 96.62%. When we look at the annual required contribution rates, the cost of improvements can be absorbed within the current contributions that are coming into the plan. And our actuary projects that the plan will continue to move towards the 100% funded ratio, although reaching it a few more years later in the future, but well within our target amortization date. Last week, I provided the costs as a percent of pay amortized over 15 years. As a reminder, the 1.75% COLA change costs 1.01% of pay, and increasing the multiplier is 0.95% of pay. The change to the formula multiplier for active employees of the MSRS General Plan is in line with other plans throughout the nation and within Minnesota. Nationally, the median multiplier among general employee and teacher plans that are coordinated with Social Security is 1.85% per year, and the average is 1.9, so this would be in line with our peers around the country. In addition, the median employee contribution rate throughout the nation is 6% of pay, which is what our folks will be contributing in July. The teacher plans in Minnesota are also currently at 1.9% multiplier. In closing, we feel those are prudent benefit improvements for the MSRS General Plan members while protecting the plan's long-term funding. As I mentioned last week, the general plan was 111% funded just a few years ago, and we did not propose benefit improvements at that time, choosing instead to reduce the investment return assumption to 7%. Now the general plan has appropriate assumptions, a strong funded ratio with positive funding projections, and is in a position to increase benefits without additional costs to employees or employers. We ask for your support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leonard. Well done. Next, we'll have Dr. Michael Landers testify, please. Dr. Landers, welcome to the commission. If you could please introduce yourself and present your testimony.
Chair Franz, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Mike Landers. I served for 27 years as a finance specialist with the Minnesota Department of Education. I'm here today on behalf of the Minnesota Retired State Employees Association, MRSEA. We represent thousands of state employees from all levels of state government from all across the state of Minnesota and beyond. MRSEA strongly supports the provisions of House File 2237. This legislation provides a fiscally responsible and balanced approach to begin to address the needs of both active members and retirees. It is fiscally responsible because as the MSRS General Plan returns to full funding, it offers modest benefit increases to begin addressing the sacrifices that were made by all parties in the 2018 pension bill in order to restore the plans to a sound fiscal foundation. And it does so without requiring outside funding. These changes can be completely funded by the plan itself and are therefore cost neutral to the state budget. It's balanced in that it increases the annuity benefit multiplier from 1.7 to 1.9% and provides a 1/4% increase in the retiree COLA, thereby addressing the needs of both active employees and retirees. This balance has been a hallmark of successful public pension agreements in the past, both in terms of times of sacrifice and when there have been opportunities for benefit improvements. House File 2237 is a step in the right direction, and we ask that you vote to include it in the omnibus pension bill. However, this bill still leaves significant unmet needs. The COLA study required by the 2018 pension bill showed inflation causes a significant loss in purchasing power over a retiree's lifetime. And that was before the surge of inflation that we recently experienced and looks like we're going to experience again soon. Let me give you an example. Someone who was covered by the MSRS General Plan who retired in 2015. When I add up the differences between the pension COLA and the annual rate of inflation between 2017, the first year they would have been eligible for a COLA, and 2024, that difference is 19%. If the February inflation rate of 2.8% continues throughout the whole year, the difference will be a loss of more than 20% over this 9-year period. So when resources become available in the future, we ask that you remember and address the unmet needs of public employees who work so hard to provide the quality of life that all Minnesotans enjoy. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today.
Thank you, Dr. Landers. All right, members, we're going to go back now, assuming there's no other testimony offered, to Senator Rasmusson. Senator, we have the 1A amendment, the 2A amendment, and the 3A amendment. Your preference where you want to start? Senator Rasmusson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the opportunity to get to talk about this bill again today. And I think it's a really important one. And I do just want to say from the outset that MSRS General is a well-run plan, and they've done a good job in many ways building their self up to getting close to fully funded. And I would say the amendments I want to talk through today are what I view as potential alternatives and what I hope commission members will view as improvements to the bill ahead of us, but is largely building on the work that MSRS General has been working on for the last decade. And I would just want to start with this context. And we've seen this story play out in Minnesota. We've seen it play out across the country, is that plans get close to fully funded. Legislatures or others who are in charge increase liabilities. Market corrections happen, and then there are issues. And I actually think in Ms. Leonard's presentation, it's on page 3, it shows just a history of MSRS and their funded ratio over time. And in 2007, MSRS General was at 98.7% funded, nearly fully funded, right? Plan was doing well. Within 2 years, they were down to 65.6%. And it took more than a decade to climb out of that. And so I just think it's important for us to understand that dynamics can change, they will change. It's just a question of how and when. And I just want to make sure we're making prudent decisions today that we're not going to look out in the future and say, maybe we should have been a little bit more patient. So with that, Mr. Chair, happy to, I'll just offer the amendments one at a time and we can talk through them if that sounds good with you.
Fire away, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, would like to move the 1A amendment for consideration. Happy to explain the amendment.
Senator Rasmusson offers the 1A amendment to House File 2237. Let's go to Senator Rasmusson to the amendment, and then we'll go to Representative O'Driscoll for author comments. Senator Rasmusson to the 1A.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This involves the legislator plan, which I believe was closed in the 90s. And it's a unique plan compared to the ones that we typically talk about in so much as it's pay-as-you-go. The fund balance for the legislator plan is $0.00. There's no money that's set aside and accumulating over time. Basically, MSRS says, here's the cost for the legislator plan, and the state pays it. So it's different than MSRS General, where people have been putting contributions in and contributions have been coming out. The market has been growing that base. This is just simply a pay-as-you-go piece. And so, Mr. Chair, I don't think it's appropriate that in this bill we also increase the COLA for the legislator plan. And so this amendment would keep the post-retirement increase for the legislator plan at 1.5%, which is what it is currently.
Thank you, Senator Rasmusson. We're going to go to Representative O'Driscoll. Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Rasmusson and members of the commission. I understand maybe some of the reasons why Senator Rasmusson is interested in wanting to hold down the COLAs on a plan that is a pay-as-you-go plan. But I also want to remind the commission that these are people who are deemed to be employees and covered under the MSRS plan. And up until 1983, the members of the legislature did not get a housing allowance that Representative Rasmusson and I enjoy. It came out of their individual pockets to be able to do that. And the House adopted theirs in '85 with a reimbursement plan. And in 1983, the Senate adopted theirs. And this is a small way to be able to say thank you to those folks who did not incur expenses with the state of Minnesota for housing at that time. And to keep them whole, these individuals sacrificed some of their time, their talents, and even their treasure to be here at the Minnesota legislature to be a part of history and to try to make Minnesota the great state that it is. And to penalize them because of the pay-as-you-go, they paid as they went too with their housing for a number of those people who are on here. Yes, that's some 40 years ago, and there are more legislators, but I keep saying Representative Rasmusson because that's when he and I were together on the Pension Commission, and he first came in the legislature. But that is a plan that was closed in 1986, and so we have a large number of people who are still beneficiaries of that. And so, members, I would recommend a no vote in treating our legislative counterparts differently, given the history of where we've been. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Further comments to the A1 amendment, Representative Nadeau.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just have a question. Is the COLA just written in statute fixed at 1.5 for legislative members?
You're asking about the legislative plan that would be affected by the 1A? I believe so. I think that's a yes, Representative Nadeau. All right. Further comment to the 1A, Senator Rasmusson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Ms. Linczewski on this because the question I'd have is, for this COLA increase, where would the money come from? Does the bill require an appropriation, or how would that function if this remained in the bill?
Ms. Linczewski.
Thank you, Senator Frantz and Senator Rasmusson. It would come out of, I believe, the general fund, so we just got the bill that had the governor's budget in it, and it does show a certain specified dollar amount that is to go into the legislator's plan. So I think it is from the general fund, and it's an appropriation.
Thanks, Ms. Linczewski. Senator Rasmusson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and well, I definitely appreciate the service of all legislators, current and in the past. I just think, again, the situation here is a little different, where it's not that people have been paying in and had a contribution sufficiency trying to catch up to be fully funded. This would be something that would count against the target that this committee has, would cost general fund dollars, and so would ask that members consider supporting the 1A. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rasmussen. C, no further comment unless it's Representative O'Driscoll. Representative O'Driscoll.
Mr. Chair, I just want folks to know what the fiscal cost of this would be, about $21,000 a year. Just to put that into perspective, is what we're looking at here. Secondly, legislators did pay into a fund on this in order to be able to be participants in this. So I want to make sure we're clear that it wasn't you were a legislator, you didn't contribute, now you're picking up a check. There was investment by the legislators in this. The plan was set up and it did not, was not anticipated to be able to vest and bring benefits like it does in our other plans that we're contemplating and that exist. And the other thing that I would remind the commission to Representative Rasmusson's point about where does this money come from? If Senator Pappas, and I'll use her, she is one of the last people on this commission, she is the last person on this commission that is under the old plan. If Senator Pappas were to decide to retire, we would be experiencing that same requirement for her or for any other legislator who decides at that time that they want to start drawing their benefit. So it's not that this is a budget buster or that this is something that we haven't dealt with or anticipated in the past. So again, Mr. Chair, I appreciate Representative Rasmusson's work on this, but I'm recommending a no vote to the commission.
All right, thank you, Representative. Seeing no further comments, members, we're going to put this to a vote, a voice vote, unless there's a request for a roll call. Remember, takes a majority of both the House and the Senate members in order to adopt an amendment. All in favor of adopting the A1, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Nay. The motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. Senator Rasmussen to the 2A, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd actually prefer to, if I can move the 3A.
All right,
like to talk
Senator,
about that one
thank
next.
you, Senator. Senator Rasmussen moves the 3A amendment to House File 2237. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this amendment deals with the post-retirement or the COLA change that's proposed in MSRS's bill. And what's currently in the bill is going from 1.5% to 1.75%. And the 3A amendment would also allow that increase, but it would put in some guardrails for especially a down market situation. And where this language came from is actually PERA's construct around how they think about COLAs. And so what this would do is it would set a maximum at 1.75 for the COLA. It would set a minimum at 1.5, and then it would track with the Social Security adjustment, so some measure of inflation. And it would basically be capped at those two numbers, and the only time that it would go back down to 1.5 is if the plan is less than 85% funded in 2 annual valuations or less than 80% funded in the most recent valuation. And so where this would have the biggest impact, Mr. Chair, is if we saw a down market like we have previously in MSRS's history, this would help with that to keep the funded status higher than it otherwise would if we just had the straight COLA increase. But under current conditions, this would allow us to have a 1.75 COLA, which is what MSRS has proposed.
Thank you, Senator Rasmussen. Comments to the 3A amendment, Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I'm recommending a no vote on here, although I do appreciate the fact that other plans have the COLA suggestion that Representative Rasmussen is putting forward. I keep doing that, I'm sorry. I keep promoting you again. That's found under the 3A amendment. But this is something that, again, as we know, working with MSRS, they have members that are elected by their retirees and by actives that are on the committee and on the board. And we've gone through and had an actuarial review on this. And this is their recommendations to us. And in the future, we can look at other alternatives, but that's not what was brought to us, and I don't want to substitute my judgment on this for those of the actuaries and others who have brought this forward with the approval of the board. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Other comments to the 3A amendment? Seeing none, Senator Rasmussen moves the adoption of the 3A amendment to House File 2237. All in favor of the 3A amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. The motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. Senator Rasmussen to the 2A.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the 2A. And happy to
Senator
explain it.
Rasmusson moves the 2A amendment to House File 2237. To-year amendment, Senator Rasmusson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the 2A amendment would show an option that we have when it comes to improving the situation for actives, for current employees within MSRS General. And currently in the bill before us, it increases the multiplier from 1.7 to 1.9, and that costs about 1% of payroll. And what this amendment does is it gives that benefit back to employees through a reduced employee contribution. And so it reduces the employee contribution by a full percentage point. And so it would take it from the plan, which is on July 1 of this year, to go to 6%. It would instead have that go to 5%. And there's a few different benefits of this amendment. One is that if individuals wanted to take that additional percentage point of payroll and invest it in a retirement option, they could still do that. They still have that as a member of MSRS, and so they could use that to save for retirement, both on a pre-tax or a post-tax basis. Or they could use the money as they see fit, and it would just be more money in their paycheck. So that's the benefit of this to the employee. And I would say the benefit to us, and as we think about just the overall pension health, and again, this tendency where we get fully funded, we increase liabilities, market adjustments happen, and then we wonder why we did that. This doesn't increase liabilities for MSRS General. This simply puts more money in the pockets of people that are working as an MSRS member. And so in terms of the benefits to the employee, benefits to the plan, trying to soften the blow of a potential down market, this is an option I think that's worth considering.
Thank you, Senator Rasmusson. Comments to the 2A amendment, Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Again, Representative Rasmusson, thank you for offering the alternative. Again, I'm going to ask the commission to not support and to vote no on the 2A amendment. A couple of reasons for this. We have a number of persons that would be affected by this, whether they are in the classified or unclassified plans. And one of the things that Senator Rasmusson has brought forward is the consideration of plans not being fully funded or retreating from the fully funded 100% on there. By putting less money into the plan, we can surmise that we could also be shortchanging ourselves by not having additional money to be able to meet those longer term obligations. In addition to that, we have what we call classified and non-classified employees, and one of those groups is not eligible for an MSRS pension as state employees. They do have, in some cases, the ability to elect after a number of years or within a certain number of years of service to the state of Minnesota to switch from the defined contribution plan to the defined benefit plan. And I think that what this does is it shortens their ability to be able to plan for retirement. I respect the idea that they can take and invest that money in a deferred comp plan, but we may have a number of people who are approaching retirement who are maxing that out, and they are now something that they were planning on at 6% in this plan is no longer going to be available to them, and they have no way to be able to make that up. I know that situation was brought to my attention when we went in July 1st of 2023, temporarily from 6% down to 5.5%. People were concerned because they were maxing out and they were investing, and there was no way to be able to defer additional money for retirement. I don't think there's anyone in this room that would disagree with me that we all need to be very vigilant in planning for our future and for our retirement. So this, I think, has some shortcomings to it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative O'Driscoll. Other comments to the 2A amendment? Seeing none, back to Senator Rasmusson, the amendment author, for any final comments before we vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity. I just want to make sure that folks know that both people that are a part of the defined benefit plan and the defined contribution plan do have current vehicles to save additional dollars for retirement, and this doesn't change that. What it does do is it gives those employees some choice over how they want to spend their paycheck, and it also would avoid increasing the liabilities for the plan overall. And so I think those are a couple of the features of this that, again, when we're taking kind of the totality of this bill and everything, is just another way to de-risk this going forward in the future and to put more money in people's pockets and give them the choice on if they want that dollar to go towards saving for retirement or for any other needs that they might have.
Thank you, Senator. With that, members, we're going to vote on the A2 amendment, voice vote. All in favor of adoption of the A2, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. The motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. We're now back to the underlying bill. That's all our testifiers. Representative O'Driscoll moves that House File 2237 be passed and made part of the omnibus pension bill. Members, that's the motion. You could have a final comment here if you wanted before we put it up to a vote. Representative O'Driscoll, any final comments before we vote it on? Senator Rasmusson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the conversation on the amendments. And on this bill, I guess, will be talked about as a part of an omnibus bill, that this committee will consider. And I just would, ask folks to think about some of the topics that were talked about today, whether or not we want to, with this bill, increase the pension COLA for legislators coming out of the general fund. And also if we want to, right before we get fully funded, basically have significant increases to the liabilities of this plan and not consider ways to try to de-risk that. And I think you don't have to look very far in Minnesota's history or across national history to see this pattern play out. And I just want to make sure we're making prudent decisions. We don't look back a few years from now saying maybe we should have taken a more conservative approach that protected the health of the plan and the members that it serves. So I appreciate the conversation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rasmussen. And for the record, the chair is going to be a yes on the bill. I appreciate the de-risking comment. I think that's legitimate, fiscal prudence, if that's the right term. My take is that the board, is making their recommendation to us. I assume they consider de-risking. We've also given Representative O'Driscoll a week. We took this down last week and said, let's kick it around for a week. So I'm satisfied. And with that, members, again, remembering it takes a majority in both the House and Senate to pass. All those in favor of adopting House File 2237 into the omnibus pension bill, say aye. Aye. All opposed? No. The motion prevails and House File 2237 is adopted. Thank you, Representative O'Driscoll. Next on our agenda is House File 2385, Representative O'Driscoll, the PERA administrative bill. While we're setting up for that, I see Ms. Stringy. Representative Wolgamott, did we have your bill here, hoping to move up in the schedule to accommodate Senator Kupec a little bit?
Mr. Chair, I can't speak for Senator Kupec, but I am ready to present my bill whenever you are.
Okay, well, let's keep it in the order that we have it on the agenda then. Flag us if we need to adjust that. Senate File XXX.
Flagging, he's flagging.
I can't see Senator Kupec back there.
Yeah, Kupec would like to.
How about Representative Wolgamott, you and Senator Kupec chat a bit while we allow Representative O'Driscoll to put this through. If it's 6 o'clock's the time you're hoping to get out of here, that can still happen. Fair enough? And then Senator Kupec, I'm giving you my thumbs up if Representative Wolgamott wants to go after this. Representative O'Driscoll, we can probably do the administrative bill in 6 or 7 minutes, don't you think?
I think it's pretty standard, pretty straightforward.
That's a yes in the Pension Commission. All right.
Mr. Chair, to get things moving, I would like to move the A1 amendment to the bill before us, 2386. It is a technical correction as a result of a error that was discussed.
Thank,
Encourage a yes vote to get the bill in the form that not only I would like, but the PERA fund would like as well.
Thank you, Representative O'Driscoll offers the 1A amendment. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting the A1 amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Representative O'Driscoll, to your bill as amended.
I do not want to further delay the excitement that we're going to hear about this bill, so I would like to turn it over to the secretary.
Thanks, Representative. I think we're going to have Ms. Wilson. Do you want to do the staff review briefly, Ms. Wilson? And then we'll go to Ms. Stringy. Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Chair France. House File 2286 with Amendment 1A is PERA's annual administrative bill. The bill has 16 sections that I'll go through very quickly. Sections 1 and 2 clarify that participation in the general plan, police and fire plan, or correctional plan is determined by whether the public employee's salary is expected to exceed $425 in 1 month. Section 3 applies to certain elected officials and adds the 30-day election period to opt out of participating in PERA General and prescribes how the election should be made. It also adds a 60-day period for the membership election to be filed with PERA. Section 4 adds that a city's manager's election of exclusion from PERA General must be filed with PERA within 60 days commencing employment. And for consistency, Section 5 adds that the election of exclusion mentioned in Section 4 be entered into within 30 days following commencing employment. Section 6, as amended, clarifies that the right to a refund of employee contributions is not restricted as to time. Sections 7 through 13 apply to certain categories of employees, and these categories can be found on page 3 of the staff memo. Sections 7 through 13 either amend or add a 60-day period for membership election to the defined contribution plan to be filed with PERA, and clarifies that the 30 and 60-day periods begin when the individual takes office or commences employment. Section 14 updates the multiplier for calculating the duty disability benefit under the correctional plan from 1.9% to 2.2% to incorporate the multiplier change that was made in 2024. Section 15 makes changes to the statute which allows for correction of errors, which we heard about earlier in this session. And Section 15, as amended, allows for plans to correct any error made by the pension fund by removing the references to specific type of errors and clarifying that the error may be corrected if the error was made by the pension fund. The last section, Section 16, as amended, brings the annual reporting requirement into conformity with the changes made in Section 15. Thank you, Chair France.
Thank you. Very well done, Ms. Wilson. Okay, Ms. Strenge, now, please introduce yourself and provide your testimony.
Chair Friends and Commission members, my name is Amy Strurney. I am the Policy Coordinator for PERA. Since Ms. Wilson did such a fantastic job summarizing the bill, I won't go into much detail other than to say that the purpose of the bill is to conform statute to administrative practice, clarify language, and address technical changes. I'm happy to stand for questions.
Well done, Ms. Strenge. Members, any questions for either Ms. Wilson or Ms. Strenge to the bill? Seeing none, we'll go to Representative O'Driscoll for any final comments before we put it to a vote. Representative O'Driscoll. Thank you. Well done, Representative. With that, members, we're putting House File 2386 to a vote. All in favor of adoption as amended? All in favor of adopting this bill as amended, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion prevails, and the bill is adopted. Thank you, Representative O'Driscoll. I see Senator Bahr here, but I thought we were going to, Representative Wolgamott, have you and Senator Kupec.
Again, Mr. Chair, it's up to you. We're ready when you are.
Does Senator Kupec have to go, or tell me the truth? I see the thumbs up. All right.
Senator,
members.
Mr. Chair, Senator Kupec has informed me that he does have to go.
All right. Then let's do that. Pay Senator Bahr back someday. Senate File 1986 and House File 1779, Senator Kupec and Representative Wolgamott, please come forward. I understand we have two authors' amendment, but I'm going to leave that to the authors here. Senator Kupec and Representative Wolgamott, we have the 1A and 2A amendments here. Representative Wolgamott, why don't you?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to withdraw the 1A and I would move the 2A.
Representative Wolgamott moves the 2A amendment to House File 1779. Representative Wolgamott to the amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members, for considering my author's amendment. The bill, as before you, has some, was introduced with some blank dots. This amendment simply reflects the actuarial analysis that was done on the bill to achieve the bill's goals, but I would be more than happy to kick it over to our staff to explain it further if you or members of the committee would like.
I think we're okay. Representative Wolgamott, it's an author's amendment. Want you to get it in the shape you want it in. Members, any questions for the senator or the representative on the 2A amendment before we vote? Seeing no commentary, all in favor of adopting the 2A amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion prevails. The 2A amendment is adopted to Senate File 1986. Representative Wolgamott, to the bill as amended.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and my fellow members of the commission for the opportunity to present House File 1779, which is a bill to allow probation officers to retire after reaching 60 years of age or 35 years of service, paid for by the employees. Mr. Chair, I'm bringing this forward to give you some context on this. Probation, parole, and supervised release officers are subject to consistent trauma. These officers and their families, unfortunately, have become targets of violence, including sexual assault, physical assault, stalking, and other threats just because of the delicate nature of the work that they do. This history of trauma combines on itself, and these critical incidents that they're subjected to lead to early burnout of officers, as it impairs their ability to continue to be effective agents of change and promote public safety. We're bringing this bill forward out of respect and recognition for the work that they do. These officers are the only members of the law enforcement community that have a retirement age of 66. We're bringing this bill forward to allow probation officers that have been just truly tested mentally and physically to retire at a reasonable time after, again, having served for 35 years of age having served for 35 years or reaching 6 years of age. Mr. Chair, I do want to mention that there has been, I'm sure you'll hear opposition to this bill from PERA came out recently and opposed this, and I just want to address that head on because of an inequity in the bill. But again, Mr. Chair, this work was done in consultation with all of the stakeholders that this would be affected. And we've heard of no complaints from the younger officers who would be paying more under this bill. I know we've got some testifiers who will give you better detail than I can on the stakeholder work that's been done. But I did want to mention that as well. And I know that's part of the discussion of this bill going forward. But again, this bill has been the product of years and years of stakeholder work. This is the right thing to do by these incredibly brave men and women who put themselves out there every day to ensure the integrity and functionality of the criminal justice system in the state of Minnesota. That's what the bill does, Mr. Chair. That's why we're bringing it forward, and I'd like to hand it off to my Senate author, Senator Kupec.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott. Senator Kupec, welcome to the Pension Commission. Fire away.
Thank you. First, thank you, Mr. Chair, for being a co-author on this, as well as Representative Cha. And I suppose now I owe Senator Bahr a political favor for also letting me go first. So thank you, Senator Bahr, for doing that. I don't think I have much more to say. I think Representative Wolgamott laid it out pretty well. I'll just mention that the bill is totally employee funded, so it's not going to come out of the general fund. So I think that they're working on a way really to finance it through themselves. So I think that's an important aspect to highlight. But it is, as Representative Wolgamott said, a very taxing job. I can't imagine like going into somebody's house when you're even at my late 50s age, going into my mid 60s, knocking on the door and not knowing what is on the other side sometimes for some of the difficult work they have to do. So I fully support this bill, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Kupec. All right, members, first of all, there are multiple pieces of submitted testimony in your packets. The list is in the agenda, including letters of support and other commentary. We're going to go to live testimony now. The first listed testifier is Doug Anderson, and on deck would be Amy Strengy. If you want to come up together, that should work.
Okay, sounds good.
Mr. Anderson, Ms. Strengy, welcome back to LCPR. Please introduce yourself and present your testimony.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commission members. I'm Doug Anderson, Executive Director for PERA.
I'm Amy Striney, Policy Coordinator for PERA.
The board does oppose Senate File 1986, House File 1779. The board's opposition is due to the intergenerational inequity created by increasing benefits for one group of members at the expense of other members. The disparity in this proposal is too significant to disregard and would create a dangerous precedent for other groups to follow. The board's position is not based on whether an earlier unreduced benefit is appropriate for these members. The board recognizes that these are difficult jobs, and the board believes an earlier unreduced benefit discussion may have merit. Again, the concern of the board is the wide disparity between members that benefit and members that pay. We will provide our testimony in two components. I will speak to the intergenerational inequity concerns, and Ms. Strange will speak to the sustainability concerns. And I will reference you to hopefully two exhibits that are in your packet that would look like this. And on one side, it's titled Examples of Member Impact. On the other side, it talks about required past service contributions. So starting with the examples of member impact, this is how two different members would be impacted by this bill. On the left-hand side of your exhibit shows what would happen for a member age 58 on January 2026 who has 28 years of service and a $100,000 final average salary, which is pretty typical for a member of that age and that service level for this group of employees. The impact for this member of being able to have an unreduced benefit starting at age 60 instead of age 66 is for a benefit of roughly $50,000 to be paid 6 years earlier. There's a present value of that to this member worth over $300,000. That member, over the course of 2 years, would have to pay a higher contribution, but that amount would total less than $10,000. So that's an example of a member gaining over $300,000 of value and benefits, contributing less than $10,000 to the plan. On the other end of the spectrum would be a new hire. So a new hire starting on January of 2026. Typically, this member would have a starting salary of around $60,000. This member would also need to contribute at a higher rate. The rate that they would contribute would not result in a increase to their past service benefit. So that member would contribute at a higher rate, have no increase in their past service benefit. There's really two, in the contributions that are proposed to increase, there's really two components to these contributions. One is a future service cost, and one is a past service benefit cost. So the future service benefit cost is 1.41% for the PERA members, according to the actuarial study performed by this group. That part is not the concern. That's a cost, the cost for providing for the increased benefit attributable to what a member earns in the future. That part's okay, that's fair. Increased benefit, increased cost for that group. The concern is the cost for the past service component. So a member who has past service would benefit from this, this change. They'd have a fairly significant amount of benefit more closely or more immediately available to them. It's the cost of that benefit that is of more concern, because that's a cost that is attributable to all current and future members for a benefit that only applies to members with past service. And that's what the example is attempting to show, is that some members have past service, they will contribute very little. Some members have no past service, they will contribute for that component but will not receive anything. In our example, we're showing that if that member, instead of contributing to the plan for a benefit that they're not receiving, if they were instead be able to invest that, earn 7% over their time period, that would accumulate to a great value to them that they would not be receiving because that's money going to the plan. The second exhibit on the back talks about the unfunded liability created by the past service component of this benefit. So with the increase in the past service liability, which is about $50 million, if that cost is amortized until the 2048 amortization date, the requirement would be that PERA would need to collect 2.88% from all probation officers in this plan, their payroll from now until the year 2048. So in this exhibit, we're breaking it down between those members that were receiving a past service component and those members that are not receiving a past service component. So the section in green is really showing that that extra 2.8% contribution required of all current and future members that only provides a benefit for past service for existing members. This is how much that group would be contributing for a benefit they don't receive. So for example, a member who's hired in 2025, they'd have two components to their contribution. They'd have a 1.41% increase tied to the benefits they're earning prospectively, and they would be subject to a 2.88% contribution increase for benefits others will receive because they have no past service. They will have to pay that 2.88% from the time from 2025 until 2048. That's the example number 2. A different example would be if you look at a member who's hired in 2040. In 2040, that member would have no past service. They'd have a future service, and they'd pay for that extra value in their future service. But they'd also be paying from 2040 until 2048 for a benefit that was only valuable to members that were in the plan in 2024. So this is intended to just demonstrate that there's some pretty significant intergenerational equity. We have one group paying a significant amount for the benefits of a prior group. That's what we call intergenerational equity. This is a concern of the PERA board, and we would be very concerned that this kind of model could also be replicated by any other group that's attempting to try to have the same benefit increase. And I'll turn to Ms. Strange to talk about
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Ms. Strenge, anything to add?
Yes, Chair Friends, Commission members, PERA's Board of Trustees generally opposes legislation that provides an exception with respect to the benefits made available to one or a group of individuals. An area of concern identified by the board is sustainability. This proposal carries risks to other general plan members. If the cost assessed in this bill is not sufficient, the cost will be placed on other general plan members who have no access to this benefit. PERA General's membership includes a wide range of positions, some that share a similar experience as probation officers. This legislation has the potential to create a precedent that these groups may seek their own individual group benefits within PERA General. This may be problematic from an equity and sustainability perspective, but also an administrative perspective.
Thanks, Ms. Stringy. Members, let's have all the testifiers go through, and then if there are member questions for any particular witness, we can ask them to come back up. Our next witness on the list is Aaron Leonard, and then Sherry Christensen would be the following witness. Ms. Leonard, welcome back up. No need to introduce yourself. Please present your testimony on the file.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members. The MSRS board does not have a position on this bill. Generally, the board is supportive of benefit changes if the contributions or funding is included and it's sufficient to cover the cost of the benefits. We do have a few concerns of how the bill is drafted compared to other plans that we administer. Our preference is for creating a set of benefits for a specific employee group in the general plan is to create a subplan or special group like we have with our fire marshals in Minnesota Statutes 352.87 and our military affairs members in Minnesota Statutes 352.85. Having the group separate ensures our actuary calculates the cost attributable to the retirement benefit these job classifications are eligible to receive. Also, generally, MSRS plan eligibility is determined by specific job classification. An example of this is the correctional plan eligibility. So those job classifications are outlined in statute. The definition that is added in 352.01 is broad and potentially would create errors in plan coverage as MSRS reviews plan eligibility. Overall, modifying the section of law that applies to more than 55,000 active employees to carve out a small number of employees is not our preference. We estimate there's about 300 people, 300 state employees that would be impacted by this bill. Creating a subplan and statute for state of Minnesota probation officers would be consistent with other special groups of employees, and stating the specific job classifications that will be eligible for this set of benefits will ensure that the funding received through contributions is annually evaluated as part of our evaluations, and that the appropriate employees will be contributing the appropriate amount going forward.
Thank you, Ms. Leonard. Next up, Sherry Christensen, and then Mr. Robert Wenthe on deck. Ms. Christensen. Welcome to the commission. Please introduce yourself and provide your testimony.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, it's my pleasure to be here. My name is Sherry Christensen. I'm an actuary with Gabriel Roeder Smith, also known as GRS. We were retained by the Minnesota Corrections Association to analyze the cost of this bill. I just want to say that we are also the retained, GRS is the retained actuary for PERA and MSRS, but here we were retained by Minnesota Corrections Association to determine the cost of this bill. I also want to just state that as the actuary, we're neither for or against any bill. Our role is just to calculate the numbers and present them as they are. I'll give you a brief summary of the study and kind of get right to the numbers, but I'm happy to take any questions as well. So as I said, we were retained by Minnesota Corrections Association. They, PERA and MSRS were very cooperative in providing data for us once the members were identified. There are approximately 1,300 members in the PERA General Plan and about 300 members in the MSRS General Plan that would be eligible for this benefit improvement. And so once we identified the people, then we had to make a reasonable assumption as to how many members would take this enhanced benefit. We know from Rule of 90 benefit provisions, some of you may be aware that members who were hired prior to 1989 get an unreduced benefit when age plus service equals 90 years. So we looked back to that retirement experience to set retirement assumptions for this group as well. But then we also made the added enhancement of assuming that in year one of eligibility, 50% of those eligible would retire and take their enhanced benefit. And then in year two, 30% would take their enhanced benefit and retire of those that were left. And then after that, in year three and beyond, we use the same rates that we use for those members that are eligible for an unreduced benefit under the Rule of 90 provisions. So just to step back and say that the actual cost of this benefit enhancement is going to be dependent on who takes the benefit and when they take it. But this was our best guess, a reasonable assumption when we did our analysis. And then also just to highlight that has already been mentioned tonight, but that the cost is borne by those 1,300 PERA general members and 300 MSRS general members who are eligible for this benefit and not the entire PERA general active membership. So as I understand, Amendment 2A is what we're focusing on right now. And so just to get right to the quick of it, the additional costs that we determined for PERA general members with a amortization to 2048, which is the statutory amortization date that we use for the 2024 evaluation, is an additional 4.29% of pay. And for MSRS general, it's an additional 4.35% of pay. And that is representative of a piece due to future service and a piece due to paying off the immediate impact of accrued liability, the increase to accrued liability. So that concludes my testimony. I'm happy to take any questions.
No, thank you, Ms. Christensen, and thanks for the numbers. I think that's good context for us as we carry forward. Our next witness is Robert Wenthe, and following that would be Janine Altman. Mr. Wenthe, if you could come forward, please. Welcome to the Pension Commission. If you could start, please, by introducing yourself and present your testimony.
My name is Robert Wenthe. I'm a Hennepin County probation officer speaking on behalf of AFSCME Council 5, Local 552. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, thank you for allowing me to come here to speak. I've been a probation officer for nearly 28 years. I'm also a veteran, having served honorably for 20 years in the Minnesota National Guard as a military police officer. Our job is this: we are the bridge between the justice system and rehabilitation. We monitor offenders, conduct home visits in dangerous neighborhoods, and make life-altering decisions regarding probation and parole violations. But this job comes at a cost. Unlike traditional desk jobs, we face unpredictable risks every day. Last fall, I met with a probationer at his residence to verify an address. A few weeks later, we're doing a search of his home, and we discover a Glock 9mm handgun with an extended magazine and a switch. The switch makes it fully automatic. We arrest him, take him into custody, pending BCA results of the DNA analysis on the gun. He's later released because it takes a long time for those results to come back. 2 weeks later, he's arrested for first-degree armed robbery. A month ago, I was confronted by a probationer when I was trying to enter his home when we had a scheduled home visit. He came at me like he was going to assault me, swearing at me, telling me this was not scheduled, even though it was. I turned around, I went to my car, and I left. The reason why I tell these stories is because many probationers have become much more brazen and dangerous, and our job as probation officers is to continue to meet with them, even though the risk is there. This job requires constant vigilance, quick reflexes, and sound judgment. Every week I go into the community, and most of the time alone without the tools of a police officer, yet I face the same risk. The main tool of my trade is experience and my wits. We deal with the same people that police officers and federal probation officers deal with, and yet we are expected to work on average 10 to 15 years longer. The life expectancy of a law enforcement and veteran is significantly less than the national average. I retired from the military several years ago, and for a good reason, because I physically cannot do the things I once did. We face many of the same risks, as well as the physical and emotional demands of a police officer. Prolonged exposure to high-stress law enforcement roles leads to severe health consequences. Probation officers often experience higher than average rates of hypertension, cardiovascular disease, mental health disorders, increased risk of PTSD and burnout. This stress is real. I've worked with coworkers that have had heart attacks, mental health issues, and one of my best friends committed suicide. We cannot afford to have officers in their 60s and 70s responding to volatile situations. The safety of agents, the safety of the communities they serve depend on it. Some may argue that extending the retirement age saves money, but the reality is quite the opposite. An aging workforce results in higher healthcare costs, disability claims, increased workers' compensation cases, lower efficiency in managing caseloads. By allowing probation officers to retire at 60, we reduce long-term costs, ensure a more effective workforce, and prevent costly health-related absences and retirements due to disability. By passing this bill, we open the door to a new generation of probation officers, individuals trained in modern rehabilitation techniques, digital case management, and evolving public safety strategies. This bill is not just an investment in their future, it's an investment in a safer, more efficient justice system for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winthe. Next up, we have Janine Altman, and then our final testifier in person is Jim Hawkins. Ms. Altman, if you could come forward, please. Ms. Altman, thank you for your patience. Please introduce yourself and present your testimony. We're open for 3 minutes or so, if that's okay. 3 minutes, not counting the cheers.
Okay, I gotta focus here. Good evening, Chair Frentz and representatives of the committee. My name is Janine Altman with Ramsey County Probation. I've been a PO for almost 25 years, and the last 15 years have been with the Domestic Abuse Unit. I would like to add that last year I did present, I recognize some of you, last year I was dressed professionally, my hair was brushed. Today I came off the streets doing home visits, so I look and feel a little frazzled. I will emphasize again, as I did last year when I spoke, probation and parole are on the continuum with law enforcement and correctional officers in that we have a badge and a bulletproof vest, which I'm wearing from the streets today. However, we may play the most critical role in terms of rehabilitation within the criminal justice realm. The same people you see or read about in the news who have committed homicide, rape, strangulation, aggravated assault, armed robbery, gun possession. They are the clients we are required to meet with, not for months, but for years. We meet them in their homes, in our offices, at their work, schools, sober homes, treatment programs, correctional facility, and jail. We recognize many clients have experienced trauma, abuse, poverty, mental illness, addiction, homelessness, so we have to balance their needs with court orders while also protecting victims and the community. Due to the instability in their lives, we agents have to be prepared for any given situation to become volatile. Whether you work in the pre-sentence unit, juvenile probation, sex crimes, DWI, domestic assault, or intensive supervised release unit, we all start our day determining which fire to put out first. Do we contact the victim who was assaulted overnight, the client who overdosed on fentanyl who's in the hospital, or the detective who suspects our client was involved in a drive-by shooting? All of those situations are equally important and deserve action, yet present safety risks. Similar to law enforcement, we never know what our next crisis is. Meanwhile, day in and day out, we continue to meet with clients, assess their needs, and provide them resources in the hopes of getting them on a new path. On an aside, last year I attended a funeral for a client who overdosed and didn't make it. His family contacted me, and without hesitation, I attended the service. I had worked with this young man for several years, and he had just made it off probation. I still think I see him sometimes in his old hangout spots. On a positive note, we do occasionally get good news that clients have made changes in their lives. They call or sometimes show up in person to tell us they got a good job, started a family, graduated high school or college, or stayed sober through a crisis. This is why we do this job. We want all Minnesotans to do well and be productive, but oftentimes it comes at the cost of our mental health. The mental, emotional, and physical demands of this work take a toll. Over time, it's the absorption of these traumatic events that we hear day after day, year after year, that eventually affect us negatively. This is the darker side of this profession, also known as secondary trauma. And whether you're a newer agent or a veteran one, urban or rural, we experience painful memories, flashbacks, stressful dreams, and emotional irritability. There are POs that have been shot at, assaulted in facilities, and held hostage at knife point, and that's just in Ramsey County. Again, we're the only entity in this continuum that does not have a reasonable retirement benefit, recognizing the toll from stress and trauma in this work. I'm here to urge all of you to consider adopting a reasonable retirement plan for probation and parole agents in Minnesota. This bill would also incentivize the young people considering a career in corrections. In recent years, we have seen a steady decline in applicants and retention of good employees. Our neighboring states already recognize this need and have adopted early retirement for their probation and parole staff. Thank you for hearing us and listening to us once again. We do truly appreciate your time and the hard work you're doing for Minnesota.
Thank you, Ms. Altman. Right back at you. Our final testifier in person members is Jim Hawkins. Mr. Hawkins, welcome to LCPR. Again, hoping for about 3 minutes of testimony. Thank you. Introduce yourself and present your testimony.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, friends, and representatives of this committee. Thank you for this time to speak and for the work you do for our state. My name is Jim Hawkins. I've been a probation officer in Ramsey County for 29 years and a member of our probation Teamster Union. At the core of our job is respect for humanity and the belief that people can change. We work to create the conditions, support, and guardrails for the people who have been involved in dangerous behaviors to change and help them live their lives in such a way to prevent further victims. Our priorities are rehabilitation and public safety. We're here today because a change is needed and long overdue in the pensions for Minnesota probation and parole officers. To understand why this pension bill is needed, we need to talk about the reality of probation and parole work. It's hard, stressful, dangerous, and does take a toll on those who do it. We work with the same people as law enforcement, people with violent behaviors and a whole host of other challenges. We are constantly in situations that have the potential to become physically dangerous in a split second. To keep this very real, at the most basic level, the people we work with have assaulted, threatened, stolen, raped, molested, murdered, shot at, burglarized, and the list goes on. Bullet-resistant vests, as Janine is wearing right now, radio coordination with police, yearly safety training, and a committee to handle safety incidents are tools of our job. Home visits are conducted in pairs, with one person designated as the contact person for the client and the other constantly scanning the environment for safety concerns. We use code words to let our partner know, "Get out now." In the course of doing this work, we are in harm's way and receive direct threats, veiled threats, intimidation, and harassment. All probation officers have experienced this. Yesterday, a probation officer relayed to me that while waiting to go into court and pregnant at the time, her domestic abuse client charged at her, stopping just inches away in an attempt to intimidate her. A few years ago, while doing a routine home visit, my longtime and dear colleague found himself in his car in the middle of a drive-by shooting at the home of his client. He had just enough time to duck as bullets struck his car and one of them passed right through his headrest. The safety concerns do not end when our workday does. As a probation officer, you remain ever vigilant. My wife and I establish a code word for when we are out in public. If we are at the mall or state fair, and I see a current or past client who may pose a danger, she knows immediately to take the kids and disappear. And then there's the mental and emotional toll of our work. At this point in my career, I've read thousands of reports involving horrific things happening to people: homicides, rapes, sexual abuse, domestic assaults, and shootings. And I've had innumerable interactions with confrontational people and been on the receiving end of a lot of anger, yelling, accusations, threats, spit, and even been swung at. Minnesota police officers and correctional facility are recognized for the toll their work takes. This is done through their pensions. We probation officers do not have the exact same experiences they do, but we are without a doubt immersed in it in a very significant way. Does it really make sense for a 63, 64, or 65-year-old to put on a bullet-resistant vest and head out to do home visits? Is that good for the client, the community, or the probation officer? Our nearby states, including Wisconsin, Iowa, South Dakota, Illinois, Nebraska, and Kansas, recognize this concern in their pensions for probation officers. Minnesota is drastically behind in this regard. Those working on the pension bill last year listened to the feedback given and incorporated the recommended changes into this bill. We've done the actuarial work. We've raised the minimum number of service years from 30 to 35, which is a clear difference in benefits compared to police officer pensions. We've also built in a delayed start to help agencies prepare for a potential increase in retirements, and to make sure everyone contributes an increased amount before they can receive the benefits. In closing, it's past time we got this pension corrected, and that Minnesota is no longer the outlier, leaving their probation and parole officers in this caustic and dangerous work for many more years than our neighboring states. We understand the financial reality and are not asking our fellow taxpayers to do more. On behalf of the probation and parole officers across our state, we simply ask you to give your legislative approval for this bill so we ourselves can pay for this needed pension change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Members, that concludes the testifiers for the bill. We're going to go now to member questions and comments. It is the intention at the request of the author to lay the bill over, so there's more work to be done here. With that, we'll go first to Representative Cha, and then after that to Senator Rasmusson. Representative Cha.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the authors to bring this forward. Today, as I walk into pensions, I was reminded of my good friend who is out there who greeted me, who is a parole officer. His story 6 years ago, when I didn't know that he was a parole officer, he explained to me that he was on his job when he was held at knife point as a hostage, and that all he had was his hostage negotiation skills to get him out of that situation. And I said, do you not have a firearm as a parole officer in the state of Minnesota? He says, no, we're not allowed to be armed. And I said, and these are faux felons, former convicted felons that you are trying to see on a daily basis? He says, yes. And he's out there, and he greeted me. And that's why this bill is important. We are giving our officers nothing but a bulletproof vest to do this job. The least we can do is give them this pension. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Cha. Senator Rasmusson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I too just want to say that I appreciate the probation officers who have reached out and shared their stories. And as maybe some folks know and some folks don't know, Minnesota has one of the lowest incarceration rates in the country. But that means, on the flip side, that we also have one of the highest rates of individuals on probation. And so I think it's important to recognize that we have individuals on probation who in other states would be in prison, right? And that can increase safety concerns and work hazards for our probation officers. So my thinking behind this is that, if we're going to be moving in this direction, I just want to make sure it works and we get it right. And so kind of in that line, just have a few different questions. One is for PERA, and I guess one of the questions I have is, what would be other options to accomplish this same goal? And what I mean by that is, in the bill before us, there's this plan within a plan construct. And, this is one option. What about creating an additional plan? I just wanted to know, if the goal were to be to reduce the age of retirement for career probation officers, what are the options that the Pension Commission has, perhaps in addition to a plan within a plan?
Senator, are you asking if maybe we call Ms. Strenge back up?
Ms. Strenge or Mr. Anderson? Yeah.
Ms. Strenge, Mr. Anderson, thank you for coming back up for a brief response to Senator Rasmusson's question. Basically, I think what he's asking is, if your concern is plan within a plan, what are some alternatives? Ms. Strenge?
Mr. Chair, Commission members, there is a study that the board is doing. We've commissioned a study that looks at creating a new plan. Probation officers are part of that study. What we are assessing the cost for is a 2.2% multiplier, age unreduced retirement age of age 60. The disability benefit is still to be determined. That study is currently with our actuaries that we're looking at. I will highlight that study is future service only. Similarly, back in the 90s, there were conversations about general plan members and correctional plan members. Correctional plan members were part of the general plan, and they created a new study back in the 90s, or a new plan in the 90s that based on future service, and now they have a very good plan that takes care of those members.
Thanks, Ms. Strenge. Mr. Anderson, you good with that answer?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Senator Rasmusson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and appreciate that. We'll be continuing conversations. I have one more follow-up for PERA, which is, would creating that study and a new plan with a greater retirement benefit, would that address some of the concerns that you have over the generational inequity and kind of shifts that you highlighted, or do those still exist?
Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Chair, Senator Rasmusson, yes, the new plan study that Ms. Strenge referenced is related to future service only, so it would take away the past service component. That is the concern about this particular.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Senator Rasmussen, you're good. Again, members, our intention is to lay the bill over. Before we do that, let's have any final, Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was wondering if maybe Ms. Strenge and could stay, and if Ms. Leonard could come forward, please.
Representative.
Thank you. Ms. Stringy, what's the current contribution rate for probation and correction officers in the PERA program right now?
Ms. Stringy?
Mr. Chair, Representative O'Driscoll at 6.5%.
And do we know what the additional increase would be for persons in the corrections and probations plan anticipated under this bill?
Ms. Stringy?
Mr. Chair, Representative O'Driscoll, I believe it's 4.29%.
I think that was part of the testimony of Ms. Christensen also, if
Yep,
you want to.
and thank you, Mr. Chair. So under the PERA program, that moves the employee contribution to almost 10.8%, plus 7.65% for Social Security, puts them at about 20.5% of gross payroll or gross wages. So if you are making $60,000 a year, which was testified to tonight as an entry-level position, $12,000 of your annual salary now goes to Medicare benefit, to Social Security, to your base PERA, and to the enhanced benefit on here. That's before you pay any, and let me do the quick math on here. That 60,000 times 0.8 gives you about $48,000 of leftover payroll to pay toward employee contributions to benefits such as health insurance, dental, medical savings accounts that many people take advantage of and the like. I fully appreciate the work of what probation officers and corrections folk do. I have a lot of friends who are in law enforcement and a lot of friends who are in public service in that arena. What I am concerned about is that we are pricing people out of the market. As someone sits down and looks at a benefit package and they're out of college, they're out of school, they have some school debts and different things to pay, is $48,000 without even taking out of their benefits into consideration or any other monthly expenses. Is that the right number to be able to attract people? Because it's going to be deducted for payroll. And I'd like to just run that same math example, if I could, with Ms. Leonard, as to where folks who are contemplated to receive a benefit change under this plan, where their current contribution is.
Ms. Leonard?
Mr. Chair, Representative O'Driscoll, currently, general plan members starting in July will be contributing 6% of pay. I believe Ms. Christensen testified that the additional cost associated with this benefit would be 4.35%.
So 4.35%. So roughly, within 6 basis points, the math works out the same for both programs. And as Ms. Stringy and Mr. Anderson testified, using this graph, the people who are closest to retirement would be the ones who contribute the least to the enhanced benefit, and the people who are coming on board are the ones who are contributing the most to that benefit for the longest period of time. And if we are really wanting to take care of probations and corrections folks, and we really want to use this as a tool to attract people, I question whether or not that's the route to go, to be able to, when you make the least amount of money, place the extra 4.29% or the 4.35% on someone's wages. And that goes to backfill for people who will be leaving maybe, who are maybe age 56, 57, 58 at this point in time on here. Again, I'm a math guy. I've been on this commission for 15 years. I helped to stabilize these plans for a number of times. I do not want to go back to what we did 15 years ago and have to start all over, where we had to make some pretty drastic and unpleasant decisions that the work groups and the legislature and retirees came to an agreement on to be able to stabilize these plans. The other thing that's important to remember is that the Pension Commission has always tried to keep the employer and the employee contribution relatively close. And there's a reason for that, because we don't want to overburden the employee. And the second part of that is you want to make sure that if an employee, in this example that we were talking about tonight, starting at $60,000, says after 2 years, I'm throwing the towel in. I can't make expenses and ends meet. I need to have a part-time job and I need to do things. That only contributes to the stress that you heard about this evening from the testifiers. Again, if we're going to do this plan and do it right, this seems to me to be adding additional stress and complications to the workforce. The other thing that can happen is that that employee leaves. They are allowed to withdraw or receive a refund of their employee contribution to the plan. Those funds could be taken out. The employer contribution of around 6 to 6.5% roughly would stay. What that does is that reduces the amount of money that is in the plans to be able to help cover future benefits for folks in the plan. These are the things that I stay awake at night and worry about for the people who are in service to the people of the state of Minnesota. I take this very, very seriously. And I've worked really hard with a lot of folks bipartisanly to get these things right. My concern is that in 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years, we're going to have these folks coming back and saying, we're not able to attract and to retain folks anymore. We're losing our workforce. And at some point in time, the legislature is going to have to deal with, what do? Does the state or the employer group take back some of that contribution that the employee wanted to or was willing to put forth? And at what circumstance is that? We are projected, not this biennium, but the following biennium, to have a rather sizable shortfall. What happens if those worlds start colliding and we don't have the ability to do that? Then what happens is our funds become unfunded or underfunded and underfunded. And that's where we go back to where I came on board 15 years ago, where through the work of the legislature and the partners that I talked about, we moved forward to be able to stabilize the plans. I do not want to revisit the days of old. I want to, as I said last week, every check that we write will cash for the benefits that people are promised in these plans. Finally, Mr. Chair, the last thing I get concerned about is if we have this plan going forward, what happens if we have other plans that come forward and say, in a Me Too fashion, we will pick up the contribution, we will do these kinds of things on the employee side. And not only does this world collide with the catastrophe of shortfalls and budget issues, we now have 3 or 2 or 4 other programs that are on here. We run the risk of deleveraging our plans. We have a problem. And I'm very concerned about that. I want people to have a good benefits package. I have fought for years on that. But I get very, very concerned about what the future looks like in something like this, because we've got unfilled positions right now in corrections and probations. And I think we put ourselves on a chart or on a course that we continue to have problems as people start figuring out how the math affects them personally. And so, Mr. Chair, I am happy that we are laying this over tonight so we can get an opportunity to look at this. I just want people to take this to heart. Again, I raised this issue today in 2025 of something that may occur when I'm no longer here or any of the members around this commission. But we're asking future legislatures and future employee groups to have to deal with that situation. I can assure you it is no fun. It is absolutely no fun. It took us 3 years to get the last reform done. 3 years as plans were having trouble with the funding. I want to have our benefits adequate, and I want us to be able to pay for them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative O'Driscoll. Members, we got to keep it moving. Seeing no further member comment. Representative Wolgamott or Senator Kupec, do you want to add anything before we lay this over? All right. With that, members, we are going to lay over Senate File 1986 and House File 1779. Next item on the agenda is going to be the very patient Senator Bahr, who is bringing forward as everybody knows, Senate File 1556 and House File 708 with Representative Scott. Senator Bahr, just you tonight, or is Representative joining you?
Representative Scott is in district this evening, Mr. Chair.
All right. Senator Bahr, you have been patient. Thank you for that very much. It is the intention of the commission to hear the bill and then lay it over at your request. With that, please, I think we'll have Ms. Lincheski not go over the bill summary. I think what we're going to do is not have that happen. And so we're going to go to the next thing that is going to happen, which is Senator Bahr. Please present the bill briefly if you can, and we'll get to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the committee's time. And this is pretty straightforward bill that adds one member to the PERA board. And that one member would be, it takes it from 11 to 12, which I know is a little bit of an oddity, but there is one other pension plan that does have a 12-member board. And it adds, this member must be of the correctional service retirement plan and must be a local member of that. And that's pretty much the bill, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator. I see that we have a testifier. Is that Mr. Laszlo?
Yes.
Mr. Laszlo, thank you for your patience. Welcome to the commission. If you could introduce yourself, please, and give some brief testimony.
Thank you. My name is Wade Laszlo. I'm the president of the Minnesota Correctional Officer Retirement Association. I'm retired from Hennepin County after 26 years as a detention deputy in the jail. And I'd like to thank Senator Frentz and the commissioners for hearing this bill this year. Minnesota, the PERA Correctional Plan was formed in 1999. Currently, we have 13,144 members and over $1.2 billion in the fund. This is the only plan that we can find in the country with $1 billion in their pension plan without a seat on the pension board. The last time a change was made to the PERA board was in 1995, 4 years before the creation of our plan. It should be noted that the state correctional officers have a dedicated seat on the MSRS pension board. A major change took place to the PERA correctional officer status as of January 1st, 2025. They are now public safety officers per the federal government thanks to the Secure Act 2.0. This is the same designation as police and fire. PERA even published on their website, quote, the Secure Act 2.0 Act of 2022 now includes correctional officers in the federal definition of public safety employees. Review your employee benefits for other impacts with this law change. Over the years, there have been several attempts to merge other non-correctional job classes into the PERA correctional plan. 2003, there was an effort to add probation. 2018, there was the Share the Pain bill. I'm trying to go fast for you here. Share the Pain bill, where they wanted to take our 2.50 COLA and split it with the other plans because we're fully funded. Fortunately, that went away. In 2021, there was an attempt to add 911 dispatch to our plan. So while police, fire, probation, 911 dispatchers, and corrections officers are all essential employees, only police, fire, and correction officers are public safety employees, and this designation has different retirement, disability, and tax benefits. I'll use this as an example. This past week, a Hennepin County detention deputy from my old jail was assaulted. He has a broken nose, a concussion, amongst other injuries. This is a duty injury, which is different, which would be a duty injury, which is different if he ends up not recovering. It would be a duty disability, which is different than regular disability. So MNCORA, at the last PERA meeting, they seem to be confusing the definitions of essential employee and public safety officer. And there's vast differences, like I said, between those designations. Even the PERA board isn't exactly up on that. I'm just going to pull up something really quick for you. When I was looking over PERA's stuff before the thing, I don't know if Doug Anderson is speaking on this or not, but one of the things they listed is the PERA board members, and I'd like to point out that 3 of the members on PERA's board come out of the police and fire plan. That would be the retired annuitant, the retired disabled and survivors one, and the police and fire one. Corrections officers have nobody. And so MNCORA is asking you to support HF 708 and SF 1556 to add a seat to the PERA board. MNCORA also wants to remind you that this is an unpaid seat. It will not cost the state of Minnesota or the taxpayers one dime. It's literally one more seat at the table. All they do is slide the microphone over to the next person, and away they go, and we would like a voice. We thank you for hearing this bill.
Thank you very much. Well done, Mr. Laszlo. We're going to have Mr. Anderson come forward and testify briefly before we give it back to Senator Bahr and lay the bill over. Mr. Anderson, thank you for coming back up.
Thank you.
Comments to the bill, Mr. Anderson?
Hello again, Mr. Chair, Commission members, Doug Anderson, Executive Director for PERA. PERA's board opposes Senate File 1556, House File 708. The board opposes a piecemeal approach to board changes and encourages that any potential changes to board composition be considered only on a holistic basis. The board reached their decision after extensive discussion at their annual board workshop. From those discussions, we categorize the board's opposition in three ways. First, the board believes that they have effectively served the correctional plan. Second, there's already an opportunity for correctional members to serve on the board. And third, the concern about potential impact of ad hoc additions to the board. Before elaborating on the board position, I'd like to briefly describe the board makeup and trustee responsibilities. We included an exhibit, hopefully in your packet. The board has 5 appointed trustees, 5 elected trustees, and the state auditor. All active and retired members of the general, police and fire plan, and correctional plans vote on all 5 elected positions. And once elected, a member must fulfill their fiduciary duty, which includes making decisions on all plans, balancing the interests of plan members, employers, and the state of Minnesota. The first reason for PERA board opposition is our belief that they have engaged with the correctional plan stakeholders, listened to their concerns, and have supported the plan in a manner consistent with the long-term positions and priorities established for all of PERA plans. Specifically, the board has supported that this plan remains exclusively available only to correctional members. The board has supported increasing the benefit multiplier. The board has supported maintaining the best post-retirement increase formula, and the board has supported adding periodic experience studies. In addition to supporting these issues, the plan consistently has maintained a funding ratio in excess of 90% and is currently very nearly 100% funded. The second reason is that there already is an achievable opportunity for correctional plan members to serve on the board. We have had a correctional member apply for the elected retiree position. However, we have not had any correctional members apply for one of the 3 general plan positions since at least 2011. Opportunities to get on the board are achievable. In 2023, there are only 3 candidates for the 3 general positions. In prior elections, there were never more than 6 candidates for those positions. We believe in all of those years, if a correctional member would have they would have a reasonable chance to finish in the top 3 if they had a member apply. Also in 2024, a general representative of the board resigned. 4 candidates applied for that position. None of them were correctional.
Mr. Anderson, I assure you we're familiar with the history of the board, and I'm taking it that you're opposed to the bill. We're trying to keep the agenda moving, if you don't mind, but please continue.
Sure, I'll just wrap up that we believe that the correctional plan has been well served by the board, that there's opportunities available, and just concerns that ad hoc changes may introduce other concerns regarding proportionate representation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. You are a good sport. Members, that's all our listed testifiers. Again, it's the intention of the commission to lay the bill over. Senator Bahr, do you want to make any final comments, or are there any member questions? Seeing none. Senator Bahr.
Yeah, real quick, thank you for the committee's time. And I know it's been a while since I've been in the House, but I see Representative Lilly has taken my advice and uses the same cosmetologist that I use. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bahr. And Mr. Laszlo, I want you to know Senator Bahr has been all over this bill getting a hearing, and you deserve to know how many times he's mentioned it to us. With that, the bill is laid over. All right, members, we're going to go to the secure choice agenda here, and if those, like Representative Berg and Senator Rasmusson are wondering, we're going to get to them following the secure choice bills. Everybody good with that? Thanks, Representative. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For members who were not here when we first passed the secure choice bill, Mr. Bergstrom, who is the temporary executive director of the Secure Choice Board, is going to go through a little 101 quickly. So I'd appreciate that, and I'm keeping my comments very short as a result of the time limit.
Thank you, Senator Pappas. Mr. Bergstrom?
Yep. Mr. Chair, my name is Dave Bergstrom, and I'm the interim director of the Secure Choice Program. I know some of you from a past life, but I just thought I'd briefly introduce myself. For 25 years, I was executive director of the Minnesota State Retirement System. I retired in 2016. Working on this, helping the board set up the program was intriguing to me, so I came out of retirement. Just a little bit of history or where we're at with the program. So you should have a handout in front of you. The state, Minnesota Secured Choice is a state-facilitated program for private employers. It was established in 2023. It's an efficient way for private employees who do not have access to an employer-sponsored
retirement plan to save for retirement. Why this is what the group is we're triggering is on slide 2. About 770,000 private employees in Minnesota do not have access currently to a retirement plan. And that is the focus of the group that we are trying to cover. 17% of Minnesota retirees have used Social Security for over 90% of their income. So retirement planning is critical to the success of retirees and success of the state. The more people have in retirement, the more they can stay off other social programs. So just a recap of the key features. Employers with 5 or more employees who do not offer a retirement plan are required to participate. Employer contributions are not permitted. Employers will deduct the contributions and remit them to the record keeper. Employees will be able to opt out of the plan if they choose. The board is proposing a 5% default contribution rate that would escalate over time by 1% a year until it reaches a maximum of 8%. Employees would be able to withdraw their funds before they retire. The money is going into a Roth IRA, so they would have access to those funds if they need it. But ultimately, the goal is to help them save for retirement. From an implementation standpoint, we are going to be posting a record keeper RFP in March 31st of 2025. We are also going to reach out to partners. There are 3 different states that have partnered or are willing to partner with other states, and we will be looking at that at the same time. So we're going to send an RFP to the record keeper and a similar RFP to the partners, and the board will then decide which one is the most cost effective. The board is in the process of hiring a permanent director. We would then contract with the record, and we'd have that done in June of 2025. We'd have a contract with our record keeper or partner in July of 2025. In October, we'd have materials ready for employees and employers, and we would look at having the program up and running first quarter of 2026. The plan is to phase in the program, starting with the largest employers first. So if you look at the next slide, if we would start with employers that have 100 or more employees, they would handle those the first 6 months of the implementation of the program. We would expect about 5,500 in that phase. That covers 1.8 million people. That doesn't mean we're going to enroll 1.8 million people because many of those people will have a retirement plan already. Then we would move down to the list, and 2 years out, we would start attacking the smaller employers with 5 to 9 employees. So we would gradually implement the program to ensure that it runs smoothly. We can handle the influx. If an employer wants to enroll at any time early, they may. I have a handful of employers who are interested, and they may do that. Well, one of the things that's going to be critical to a successful program is getting information from another state agency. In the bill, we are looking at deed for that support. And I think the contentious part is the federal employee identification number. Why we need the federal identification number, we're going to be reaching out to 48,000 employers. And if, let's say, each of you are an employer, we would be able to take that federal ID number, send it through to the Federal Department of Labor, and if you had a pension plan and filed a 5500 form saying you have a retirement plan, we don't have to bother you. So all of a sudden, half of the room is done and will no longer be, we won't have to contact them, we won't have to follow up. So it really eliminates probably 20 to 25,000 employers from who we have to contact. And you can imagine how big of a role that would be. So we would keep it secure. We live in a world of sending data electronically back and forth. I'm guessing many of you bank electronically. I got my refund check electronically. Every retirement plan handles data electronically. The record keeper we will use will have to have Social Security numbers, banking information. They are covered by the most stringent rules for security, equal to banking. So they will clearly keep it clean. And there are 15 other states where they're already sharing data. So I'm not sure why Minnesota would be unique in not being able to share that data. So getting that data is very critical. So with that, that would be the testimony on the administrative bill.
Thank you, Mr. Bergstrom. I appreciate that. We have another bill, members, but let's stay on the administrative bill for now. Our next listed testifier is Evan Rowe from Deed. Mr. Rowe, if you come forward, and then I have Devin Bowdry listed as well, also from Deed, but I'm assuming that's it.
Mr. Chairman, while Mr. Rowe is coming up, I wanted to be sure to point out the letter from the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, that they're in support of both these bills.
Senator Pappas, members, in your packet, you have a letter of support from the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Evan Rowe, Deputy Commissioner at Department of Employment and Economic Development, and it'll just be me. Mr. Bowdry won't need to testify in the interest of keeping things moving. We absolutely support the work of Secure Choice, but I'm here on behalf of the department just to raise some significant concerns about the proposed language of the bill. The bill language in this administrative bill is very broad. It requires access to a large amount of deed employer data, which includes FEINs and in some cases social security numbers, which act as an FEIN for some limited employers. It also includes some references to data that we do not collect as an agency. Additionally, it requires that Deed submits any additional information about employers with kind of very few limitations under the provisions. And it also has a very kind of, a 30-day time window, which would be a significant burden on the agency, particularly given the other administrative responsibilities of the unemployment insurance program. I'd also just note our data set is likely limited for Secure Choice stated purposes in that we are not the primary agency of record when it comes to collecting FEINs. We use that as an attribute within the administration of the unemployment insurance program, but there are other state agencies that work more with that as a primary data set as we go. Again, our focus for the UI program is administration of the unemployment insurance program, and with that comes a responsibility for data integrity. We are accountable to the people of Minnesota, but also to the United States Department of Labor, the Internal Revenue Service, the Social Security Administration, and other federal agencies. And all UI data is either private or non-public per Minnesota's UI statute. So the onus of that responsibility is on the unemployment insurance program, and those are, I think, some of the concerns that we're just seeking to raise in the context. Certainly appreciate the good intentions of this legislation, however.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. You might want to hang around to see if there's any member questions or input. I have Mr. Bowdry listed also as a testifier. Is that more as a backstop?
Yeah, no
Okay.
need.
All right. Members, there's also a letter from AARP in your packets. So with that, that ends our testifying. It was our intention to move to pass the bill, Senator Pappas, so let's do this. We have Ms. Schertz, who's the chair of the Secure Choice Board. Do you want her to testify? Ms. Schertz, if you don't mind.
Mr. Chairman, as Ms. Schertz is coming up, I just want to comment that Mr. Bergstrom has tried repeatedly to work with Deed, and we did have a meeting with Mr. Rowe in which we asked him to please let us know what we could do, what we need to change in the legislation. And it's kind of shocking to me the lack of cooperation from the administration about this very, very important program that will provide amazing benefits for people with their own money to be able to set aside and save them. And it's really been a dream of mine for 10 years.
Senator, you've done a nice job on this program. Let's have Ms. Schertz testify, then we'll go to member questions. Senator Nelson, you want to go now?
Yeah, just
All
a
right,
quick
Senator-
note.
Senator
because
Nelson.
I think it's timely. We don't have the letters. We don't have the letter
In your
from.
packet.
None of us have it on this side of the table.
Oh.
So I don't know
Well, maybe they're just.
where it is.
All right,
but
Senator Nelson, totally legitimate question. Give us 1 second as we work through our top secret letter packet providing strategy.
I have it in my special packet.
As an original author, you get the special packet.
Well, this should speed us up.
All right, while they're
Ms.
looking.
Mr. Chair, I do have a few copies of the letter from the Chamber of Commerce. If
Thanks,
that's
Mr. Bergstrom. I think we'll be okay here. Nothing can prevent us from taking Ms. Schertz's testimony. Nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief while they
Let's-
look.
Ms. Schertz, thank you for your patience. Just give us 30 more seconds to have something happen.
They're getting them from outside.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. We're now going to have Jill Schertz, Chair of the Secure Choice Board, present her testimony. Ms. Schertz, we're on the administrative bill, so that please identify yourself again and present your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jill Schertz. I'm the Executive Director and CIO of the Minnesota State Board of Investments. In that role, we sit on the board, and I'm currently the board chair. I just want to add, it's a testament to Mr. Bergstrom's efforts that you have in front of you today, a letter from the Chamber of Commerce. As you know, there was some discussion initially about whether the business community would support this. And I want to congratulate Mr. Bergstrom. He has spent his entire tenure really convincing the business community that this program is for them as well. And so I think it's really important that we note that. As well, I want to echo the importance of receiving this data. As Mr. Bergstrom mentioned, it's also a benefit to the business community that we have this data so that we can edit out very quickly business community members that we don't have to maintain contact with. With that, I'll turn it over.
All right, thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman, I do have the A1 amendment, which
you,
I would
Senator
appreciate
Pappas.
if the committee would put on the bill.
Senator Pappas moves the A1 amendment. Senator Pappas, do you want to comment on what the A1 is and then go to
Mr.
member
Bergstrom
questions?
can.
Yeah.
Mr. Bergstrom.
Mr. Chair, primarily it increases the definition of seasonal and temporary employees from 120 days to 180 days. So it just excludes a few more members from the participation.
Thank you for that, Mr. Bergstrom. Members, any questions for Senator Pappas on the A1 amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting the A1, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. Senator Pappas, it is our intention to pass this administrative bill tonight. Any comments to the bill as amended?
Mr. Chairman, I have to say that maybe you should lay it over until we work out the disagreement with deed. I think the second bill we could pass.
All right. Thank you, Senator Pappas. Here's what we're going to do. We'll respect the wishes of the author. Let's move to lay the administrative bill over, if I'm hearing you, to provide more time to work. All right. Any further comment on the administrative bill?
Mr. Chairman, would you like Mr. Bergstrom to go through it so we know what's in it?
We had a staff review.
Or a staff review?
We'll have Mr. Bergstrom go through it. Mr. Bergstrom.
Or Ms. Mancheski?
Mr. Chair, I'll go quickly. Section 1 is the requirement that deed provide the data and lists the data that we need. Section 2 deals with seasonal employees that we just amended to exclude them from coverage. They still would be able to voluntarily participate. Section 3 is, I'll call it a technical provision, just defining the open enrollment window. Section 4 is technical as well. The law refers to permanent and interim, so this just clarifies no matter if it's a permanent or interim director, that law applies. Section 5 clarifies the process which allow employers to certify that they do not have to participate, so they can certify that they do have a retirement plan or that they have fewer than 5 employees. Section 6 is a technical change, again, just saying that if the board changes the default contribution rates, they would have to give notice, 6 months' notice to employers and employees. Section 7 delays the need to provide a lifetime income option until July 1 of 2008. People can buy annuities on the open market, and the accounts are going to be so small, there's no reason to provide lifetime income options at this time. Section 8 just clarifies that employees must submit payrolls within 30 days of the date of hire, or within the date of hire at the beginning. Section 9 requires the payroll employee paycheck be submitted to the record keeper within 30 days. Section 10, again, just deals with when the employer needs to notify employees. Section 11 clarifies that the board may impose monetary penalties, must impose monetary penalties if people don't comply with provisions, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Section 13 requires the director or interim director to file an economic interest statement with the Campaign Finance and Public Disclosure Board and prohibits them from participating in deliberation. I filed one. I think there's another law that covers, but I think it would be good to have in there. And the Section 14 then allows the Minnesota Secure Choice Board to enter into an interagency agreement with DEED. And Section 15 is the effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Bergstrom. Having reviewed it, we'll go to member questions. Again, our intention is to lay it over. Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and then Senator Pappas, I just want to throw out there that I'm really impressed with your work on this, and I think it's a great program, and I think it'll be really nice to have available for people in Minnesota. So thank you for your work on this. And then I've always been impressed with as a legislator, the employees that we have that work for the state, and I'm really always been impressed with Mr. Bergstrom, and to have him doing this role, it's quite a get. So, and it's a pleasure to work with you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Lilly. Other member questions or comments? Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If Mr. Bergstrom or Senator Pappas, I just want to highlight where some of the sticking points are with DEED. We have, full disclosure, I was not a fan of this, and Senator Pappas knows that from the years that we were on the Pension Commission together, and we have the program, and I'm just miffed that all the work that's been done to stand this program up. I concur, Mr. Bergstrom, you've been great to work with in this organization, and welcome back to the trip down memory lane for tonight with you and all the things that we've talked about. But I find it kind of ironic, as Senator Pappas said, that we're getting pushback on here. I guess I'd like to know where the administration has the pressure points, because perhaps we just go ahead and put this in tonight if the commission feels that it's not a huge pressure point for the commission.
That question can go to Senator Pappas, Mr. Bergstrom. Pressure points? Senator Pappas or Mr. Bergstrom.
Mr. Chair, I understand the department's reluctance, but I can't explain as much as what standard it will be held to. This is the world we live in. Everyone in this room has retirement data, banking data sent back and forth. Quite frankly, this data is going to be held very secure, and the record keeper is going to have a lot bigger issues if they have a data breach. They hold the accounts of Social Security numbers, banking numbers, and they are held to extreme standards. The record keepers we're looking to deal with over hundreds of thousands of employers, millions of employees on a daily basis. Neither of the two potential record keepers have had data breaches. So I understand the concern, but I'm very willing to have the department be involved in what we need to send the file to the record keeper. I'd be willing to I'd be very open to let them share, look at the data or the system that the record keeper has to make sure it's secure. That's something that we're going to do in the RFP. I had literally 2 pages in the RFP security questions. And if they want to get involved in that, that's fine. But I welcome the look at it, but the data is going to be incredibly secure.
Mr. Bergstrom. Senator Pappas, I think, wanted to comment. Representative O'Driscoll. Senator Pappas.
Mr. Chairman, there is a standalone bill. I believe it's going to be introduced perhaps Thursday. And that bill will have to go to judiciary, where they can also take another look at the data privacy issues. So, I mean, if the committee's supportive, we can put the bill in the omnibus bill and still make amendments to it later to provide more security assurances to DEED. I just want to make sure that the committee knows that that I am
willing to work with them as much as we can.
Thank you, Senator Pappas. That helps. Representative O'Driscoll, I'm open to voting tonight. That was my intention as we got going. But if the author is requesting us to lay it over, I think that's a courtesy we usually extend. Let's go to Senator Nelson.
Well, I had a follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, Representative O'Driscoll, Senator Nelson next.
Yeah, just for the, the commission's benefit again, the stuff that Mr. Bergstrom is talking about, and Senator Pappas, I will defer to you on the layover on here. I'm just wondering where the pressure points were. We transmit electronic data in many other agencies in the state of Minnesota. Department of Revenue, DEED actually receives data from employers on different things in an electronic format. They are encrypted, they are secure. I don't know why this would be considered an outlier in this situation, but I'm just rather concerned that we're pinging this particular thing to hang our hat on as a problem for electronic transfer of information, since it literally happens every day, and accessing information on the internet as people who have accounts and things. It's no different than any other kind of a situation where you run a risk of your data being compromised in something else than this type of world. I don't know that it's higher or there's more risk. It's just a little befuddling to me is all. Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative
With
O'Driscoll.
with my good friend Representative O'Driscoll's support, then I would be happy to move to incorporate it into the omnibus bill.
I think we're headed that way, Senator. I have Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I don't want to burst the balloon here, but first of all, I appreciate all the work that's been done here. I was one of those folks that was pretty skeptical at first, but I am seeing where this can be very advantageous, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the rollout. When it comes to sharing data between government agencies, I've tried that before, working with some health and human services things, and ran into a buzzsaw. Couldn't understand it, but that was a few years ago. But I have to say, I just think I appreciate your thoughtfulness, Senator Pappas, in getting this to judiciary. We should be getting it before. We have strong data privacy laws in our state. We hold that very near and dear. And so I think, I don't know what those pinch points were, but I appreciate your thoughtful approach in getting it to judiciary, getting whatever the data privacy issues are. I think it's just very smart to go, because I just think it would be thoughtful and might prevent further issues on the floor, for example. And so, Mr. Chair, my suggestion would be thoughtful, and but of course up to the author, and go through these final steps and work these out before we get to the Senate floor.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Senator Nelson, we don't want to send the whole pension bill to judiciary.
No.
So
No.
that's why having, us reviewing it here and then having the actual bill go to judiciary on its own, I think will be a better path.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. Thank you, Senator Pappas. Members, a healthy discussion. Am I hearing correctly, Senator Pappas, you'd like us to pass this? All right. The motion of Senator Pappas is to pass the Revisor number 25-040 for inclusion in the omnibus pension bill. All in favor? Senator Howe, did you want to jump in there?
I do, Mr. Chair. I just got to get this.
Senator
I just
Howe.
got to ask the question because I thought we were going to cover this later, but we never did. But on line 5.14, it used to be may and now it's must impose a penalty. If there was extenuating circumstances, I don't know why we wouldn't give the board an option whether they provide that penalty or not. You mentioned that you were going to touch on that later. We never did, so that drew
It's in
my
the next
attention.
bill, Senator Howe. We have the penalty bill in the next.
Senator Howe, this is the administrative bill, and the next bill up would be the
His
penalty bill.
question is-
There's a big difference between may and must, Mr. Chair, and when you've got to impose the penalty, instead of giving the option to impose the penalty when there's extenuating circumstance, and I believe that that's an important and a distinctive word, that if it's in this bill and we're passing this bill now, we should have that discussion.
I agree, Senator Howe. Just so members are clear, the second secure choice bill up would be the actual penalties, but the language is in the first bill. And to your point, Senator Howe, do you want to comment further on, the motion is to pass the administrative bill, so you have the floor if you want to talk about the may and must language.
I think I have, and so I'm waiting for a response.
Senator Pappas?
Mr. Chairman, in consultation with Mr. Bergstrom, since we're going to explain the penalty section in the next bill, we are happy to change the, to delete the must.
I appreciate it. Go back to May.
I just move
I'll
with
make
Senator
that-
House.
I'll make that motion to make that
Senator
oral
Howe,
amendment.
thank you for that. This is an oral amendment, and maybe Ms. Wilson could describe it. Senator Pappas, do you want to say what you're thinking? And then Ms. Wilson will read it back.
Senator Howe made the motion.
Senator Howe, do you want to describe this oral amendment?
On line 1, or 5.14, delete the new language and reinstate the old language.
Ms. Wilson?
So the amendment will be on page 5, line 14, delete the new language and reinstate the stricken language.
Aye.
Thank you, Senator Howe, for that. Thank you, Senator Pappas, for working that through. Members, we now have the administrative bill. There is a motion before us to pass this bill. For the commentary or questions, seeing none, all in favor of adoption, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion prevails. Miracles, miracles. Thank you for your patience, everybody. Now we're going to go to the secure choice penalty bill. And I still have Senator Rasmusson, Representative Berg here, winning the patience award, but just saying something on that like this. We will go now, Senator Pappas, to comment on the bill.
Mr. Chairman, if we could adopt the author's amendment, the 1A amendment.
See that here. Thank you, Senator Pappas. Senator Pappas offers the A1 amendment. Members, any questions or comments to the A1? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting the A1, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Senator Pappas, to your bill as amended.
And Mr. Bergstrom will continue then with the discussion on the penalties.
Mr. Bergstrom.
Mr. Chair, going back to the handout, why impose penalties? And penalties will increase enrollment. The vendors and partners are more likely to respond to an RFP, and it inevitably reduces the cost of the program. Their concern of a record keeper is if they build it and no one comes, they will not make money. And in all but one state, they have put in penalties and they found it very successful. What causes penalties to be imposed? There are 3 penalties. I'm going to start with 2. One is if the employer does not enroll in the program, or if the employer fails to provide information to employees. So to start with those 2, the 8th slide talks about the penalties. And I want to make it clear that we aren't going to impose any penalties for at least 2 years from the date that the employer is eligible to participate. Remember when we talked about the phase-in? So that's when we will start the time ticking. So 1 month prior to enrollment, we'll notify the employer of the upcoming window. Months 1 to 6, we'll keep reminding of the open enrollment period. We're going to keep sending letters through months 17 to 24, and that's when we would put in the penalty. One of the things that the employers ask for is that once they get that letter notifying them of the penalty, if they rectify the problem within 30 days, then the penalty will be waived. So if they continue not to comply over 5 years, the cost keeps going up. But by now, we've given employers plenty of chance to participate. The other penalty that we're concerned about would be if contributions are withheld but not remitted. And quite frankly, to me, this is the most serious problem. If that happens, employees will lose investment return, employees will not be able to access their fund, the confidence in the program will suffer. In essence, the money is stolen. The employer takes it out of the employee's checks and they don't submit it. Again, if the employer cooperates, it's an error, it's not going to be an issue. So usually payrolls are remitted within a few days of when employees receive their check. Employers will have, under the law, 30 days to make the deductions to the record keeper. We will then contact them. We will notify them they'll have 10 additional days. So now we're 40 days out from when they were paid, and we will then start working on the penalties. If they're remitted within that 10 days, they make up the employee contributions and pay interest at 7%. We get reinstated in the account and it's done. If an employer willfully or intentionally refuses, and I want to stress those words, this means they're just not listening to us, they're not coming to the table, we are looking at setting up a misdemeanor, which quite frankly is probably what is current law anyway in a different section. We would turn that over to the Attorney General to enforce that. If an employer then fails to remit within the 30-day period for a second time, then we will assess a $250 penalty. But this is a serious issue that I hope never happens, but if it does, we want to have some backup so we can make sure that the employees' accounts are kept whole.
Thank you, Mr. Bergstrom. That's our only listed testifier. Members' questions for the author or the testifiers on the penalty part of the bill. Senator Rasmusson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for Senator Pappas. Senator Pappas, is it your intention that this would be a part of a pension omnibus, or would this go as a part of a judiciary omnibus, or what's your path for this? And the reason I ask is I just don't know if we've ever had a criminal penalty in a pension omnibus bill before, and so I just want to make sure we get the lanes correct on something like this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rasmusson. Do you want to field that one, Senator Pappas?
Mr. Chairman and Senator Rasmusson, it was my intention that this be part of the pension bill. Your question about a criminal penalty is a misdemeanor? The misdemeanor? Because the fines are civil fines, right? I don't know that just a misdemeanor is considered a criminal penalty. Senator Westland, is it? Or Senator Seeberger? It is. Okay. So maybe then this bill also needs to go to judiciary.
Senator Rasmusson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I wouldn't want to deprive Senator Latz from, having the opportunity to look at this. And as someone who, I love pension policy and learning about it, but I don't know criminal law, and so that would just be something that maybe Senator Westland can work on with Senator Pappas, and I just want to make sure we're not surprising anyone with a criminal penalty in a pension bill. So that's all I had. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that, Senator. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Rasmussen, we'll look into this a little more because wage theft is already a criminal penalty, and maybe just referring, anyway, we'll see. We'll see. But we'll make sure that if it needs to go, Senator Seeberger and Senator Westland and I just love to have long meetings in judiciary, so we'll be happy to add more bills to the agenda.
Thank you, Senator Pappas. We're going to go to
Senator Latz, I think we actually have 4 members of judiciary here. We could have a subcommittee meeting.
Who's the fourth member?
Representative O'Driscoll.
I just doubled down on you. I'm sure that Representative Liebling and Representative Scott in our arrangement would love to hear the bill as well, Representative Rasmussen.
Members, our intention is to pass this bill for possible inclusion into the pension omnibus. That does not mean that matters that are the jurisdiction of the Judiciary or Public Safety Committee couldn't hear those, especially with what Senator Pappas is telling us. With that, further comments, questions from members? Senator Howe.
I'm going to feel like I'm a broken record, but I'm going to come back to line 1.8 and 1.12 on the must issue again. So
Senator Howe, good for the goose, good for the gander. Senator Pappas, would you be okay with Senator Howe's additional oral amendment along the same lines, if I'm hearing Senator Howe correctly? Sure.
It doesn't matter because you're doing it. Okay. Mr. Chairman, Senator Howe, that's fine.
All right, Senator Pappas is okay with it. Senator Howe, why don't you state your proposed amendment, and Ms. Wilson will read it back.
on line 1.8, after the word board, change must to may. And on 1.12, after the word board, change the word must to may.
Thank you, Senator Howe. Ms. Wilson.
The oral amendment would be on page 1, line 8, after the word board, delete the word must and insert the word may. The second change would be on page 1, line 12, after the word board, delete the word must and insert the word may.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Members, questions or comments to the Howe oral amendment? Seeing none. All in favor of adopting the oral amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. Senator Pappas, to your bill as amended. Any final comments?
Thank you. It's late, Mr. Chairman, and I would just appreciate the support from the committee and just very excited to see this moving forward and very proud of the Secure Choice Board.
Thank you, Senator Pappas.
And staff.
With that, members, the motion is to pass the bill into the pension omnibus bill. All those in favor of adoption, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The bill is passed and included into the pension omnibus. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Bergstrom and Ms. Schultz. I would like members to consider hearing the Rasmusson Berg bill now. I'm ready to go if you are, Senator, Representative. Members, for the final bill on the agenda, we have Senate File 2379 and House File 2022. This is the Minnesota State Higher Education Supplemental Retirement Plan.
Just had you do this.
Senator Rasmusson, Representative Berg, on a night when we've handed out the Patience Award again and again, you get the biggest one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's great to be back here. I missed this committee, so I really appreciate the opportunity to witness the entire hearing. So just briefly, and then I'll turn it over to Senator Rasmusson. The bill increases the annual limit on employer matching contributions to the Higher Education Supplemental Retirement Plan from $2,700 to $4,300, and we have all sorts of good reasons.
Thank you, Representative Berg. Senator Rasmusson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the only thing I'd add to Representative Berg's comments is that this is something that bargaining units would have to go negotiate for. So this just allows them, as they're in negotiations with their employer, Minnesota State, that this is something they could ask for, that they want to put more money towards their retirement. And I think that's a prudent thing for these bargaining groups to be talking about and to be prioritizing.
Thank you for that, Senator. And speaking of bargaining groups, Mr. Grant.
Yes.
Please introduce yourself and present your testimony.
Thank you, Senator Friends. My name is Mark Grant. I am a 27-year communication faculty member at Dakota County Technical College, and I currently help assist in the governmental relations work on behalf of MSCF. You have a detailed history of SRP with you, and I don't have anything to add. I think I want to thank Representative Berg. I want to thank Senator Rasmusson. I also want to thank Representative Wolgamott, Representative Lilly for their support on this. And yeah, it simply gives our bargaining team, as they prepare for negotiations, the opportunity to visit this benefit for possible improvement. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Members, any questions or comments relating to Senate File 2379? Senator Rasmusson and Representative Berg, final comments?
Mr. Chair, I would just move that Senate File 2379 and House File 2022 be recommended to be included in the pension omnibus bill.
Senator Rasmusson moves that Senate File 2379 and House File 2022 be recommended to pass and included in the pension omnibus bill. Discussion on the motion of Senator Rasmusson? Seeing none. All in favor of passing the Rasmusson motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion prevails. The bill is adopted into the pension bill. That is the end of our agenda. Thank you, Representative Berg. It's good to see you again. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Thanks, Senator Rasmusson. Members, that's our last agenda item. Our next meeting is Tuesday, April 1st at 5 p.m. Representative O'Driscoll. Representative O'Driscoll.
Mr. Chair, I just wonder if you give us a roadmap of what we've been looking at and maybe how many more meetings we have and just some of that stuff for planning purposes, because we will be putting omnibus bills together and stuff. And so I think it's important that we know a little bit of a roadmap here.
Thank you, Representative O'Driscoll. So the question is, what's our roadmap? My best guess is 3 more meetings. We can talk a little bit about that, and you and Representative Lilly and I can chat about preferences. We have a rough idea, but not a certainty. I can tell you that the next meeting will be April 1st at 5 p.m.
No fooling, huh? I went there. And maybe we should also include Senator Howe in that as the Republican lead on the commission as well.
Rest assured, I'm tight with Senator Howe. Senator, we'll talk about the rest of the schedule. My point is, members, we have 3 more meetings. That's my best guess. Next week is the police and fire plan and state patrol plan and COLAs and the recommendations of the amortization work group. Senator Nelson?
It's just one more question. I am unaware, do we have targets yet? I've not heard about a pensions target.
We have not publicly announced any targets, Senator Nelson, but I would imagine, if I was a gambling man, that in the next 4 or 5 days or so, there would be Senate targets announced, and I'm optimistic our brothers and sisters in the House might have something by then. Maybe they'll be close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's just hard to think about moving forward without those targets.
Rest assured, Senator. Appreciate that. With that, members, there is no other business, and this meeting is adjourned.